There's something inside you right now that's bigger than your current circumstances, bigger than your schedule, your habits, your circle, and your anxieties. And you know it. You've felt it in quiet moments, in flashes of understanding, in long stretches of restlessness where you question if the life you're living is the one you're intended for. That emotion, that tug towards something more, it's not fantasy, it's not delusion. That's your potential speaking. It doesn't yell, it doesn't demand, it whispers. It nudges. It touches you on the shoulder and says, "Wake up, I'm still here." The truth is, most people never unlock that potential not because it's not there, but because they never pause long enough to recognize it. They're too busy, too distracted, too conditioned by the noise of the world to hear the signal inside. They live by habits they didn't pick, accept restrictions they never questioned, and chase praise from others who've already given up. But that's not you. Not anymore. You wouldn't be reading this if some part of you hadn't already decided, "I'm not spending the rest of my life wondering who I could have been." You're ready. Ready to push past excuses, past hesitancy, past the overthinking, ready to go beneath the surface. See, potential isn't only talent. It's not about being gifted. It's not what you're already good at. Potential is capacity. It's possibility. It's the space between where you are and where you could be if you stopped holding back. It's the strength you haven't used, the ideas you haven't shared, the energy you've kept locked up, and the only way to obtain it is to start looking, not later. Now, because life doesn't wait. The clock is ticking, whether you move or not. And if you don't take the lead, someone else will. Someone else will define your worth. Someone else will shape your identity. Someone else will write your story. And one day, you'll wake up and wonder how you lost control. But here's the good news. You're still holding the pen. You still get to pick what the next chapter looks like. And it doesn't start with a miracle, it starts with a choice. The choice to quit coasting. The option to quit hoping, the choice to quit concealing. You don't need a new identity. You need a higher standard. You don't need luck. You require consistent activity. You don't require saving. You need to remember who you are, who you've always been, underneath the doubt and distraction. Because deep inside, you already know what you're capable of. You've seen glimpses. You've felt it in moments of fluidity and clarity. And now it's time to make that state your baseline. To pull potential out of theory and into activity. From thought into effort. From hoping into doing. Unlocking it isn't magic. It isn't a mystery. It's a process. An actual, repeatable process. A road you can take one step at a time. With intention. With clarity. With discipline. 7 steps, 7 choices, 7 layers to peel back to expose what's been there all along. And the first step to accessing that untapped potential, awareness. Not passive awareness. Not surface level recognition. But profound, active, honest awareness of where you are and who you've been. Because you can't alter what you won't address. You can't climb above what you refuse to perceive. And if you stay unaware, you stay stuck. Most individuals aren't trapped because of their circumstances. They're stuck because they've stopped being honest with themselves. They've developed a version of who they are that's easier to accept, but it's not true. It's a version fashioned by previous experiences, outside ideas, and outmoded practices that no longer benefit them. You can't construct a strong life on a flimsy basis. You need clarity about your habits, your values, your identity, and the acts that are either driving you forward or holding you back. Potential doesn't live in illusion. It lives in truth. And truth begins with the mirror. Not the mirror that flatters, but the one that reflects clearly. The one that reveals you what's real. Not to disgrace you, not to make you feel behind, but to wake you up, to give you understanding, to help you realize what's actually directing your life. How do you spend your time? Not what you say, but what you do. Where does your attention go when no one's keeping track? What patterns show up when you're stressed? What stories do you repeat after failure? What do you reach for when life gets quiet? That's awareness. And most people avoid it. They escape into distraction, into noise, into business, because silence can be uncomfortable. But quiet is also the beginning point. If you can't sit with yourself, you can't alter yourself. You need to know your defaults. The way you talk to yourself when you fall short, the beliefs that arise when plans fail, the identity you slide into when no one's watching. Because until you realize it, you can't alter it. You can't replace something you haven't named. Awareness can sting at first. It shows you the difference between who you are and who you aspire to be. It reveals you where you've been dishonest with yourself. It displays the parts of your life you've let to stray. But that pain isn't punishment. It's a doorway. It's a tool. Because once you see the pattern, you can modify it. Once you name the story, you can rewrite it. Once you understand your triggers, your emotions, your emotional defaults, you can begin to shift, not from willpower, but from intention. Because when you live consciously, everything begins to shift. You cease living on autopilot. You stop recycling yesterday. You stop blaming timing because you recognize that everything starts with you. Not in a guilt-driven way, but in an empowering one. If you've been drifting, the first step isn't acceleration, it's awakening. It's becoming conscious of what you've been avoiding, of what you've branded normal. That's no longer benefiting you, of the everyday rituals that keep you playing small. If you want to unlock your potential, start by understanding where you're leaking it, where your words don't line with your deeds, where your standards don't match your behavior, where your excuses have become your identity. It's uncomfortable, but it's vital. You don't have to solve it all today. You just need to see it honestly. Stop rotating it. Sit with it. Write it down. Name the patterns. Ask, is this who I want to be 5 years from now? If the answer is no, you've just located your starting line. Awareness creates choice. Once you're conscious, you get to decide, keep it or change it, repeat it or rewrite it, numb it or face it, run from it or rise through it. But until you're conscious, you don't get to choose. You're reacting, you're repeating, you're reliving your history and calling it a personality. And that's not who you are. That's simply what you've learned to become. But you can unlearn it, you can rewire it, you can reshape it, but only after you've seen it, because you cannot alter what you won't admit. So be honest, brutally honest, not cruel, but clear, and then be kind to yourself. Not with indulgence, but with responsibility. You witness the truth. Start shifting. Start asking better questions. Start choosing better inputs. Start walking away from what numbs and toward what sharpens. The second stage to accessing the hidden potential within you is to confront your beliefs. Because beliefs are not facts, beliefs are conclusions. And most of the ones holding you back weren't even developed by you. They were inherited. They were repeated. They were assimilated. And without ever challenging them, you let them become the pattern of your life. From the time you were little, you were being programmed, not maliciously, but continuously. You witnessed the way people around you handled failure, how they spoke about money, how they carried themselves in periods of stress, what they said about potential, about folks like you, about what was conceivable for someone with your experience, your education, your circumstances. And because you were young and your mind was open, you embraced those messages. You embraced them as fact, as structure, as constraint. And those beliefs, they become regulations, invisible restrictions that now dictate how far you reach, how hard you work, how large you dream. The problem is, most people never go back and question those rules. They build their lives inside invisible cages. And even when the door is open, they don't walk out. Because the belief says, you're not ready. The belief says, this is as good as it gets. You don't break out of that by willpower alone. You break out by challenging the belief. You ask, where did I learn this? Who informed me this was true? Have I ever tested this? Is this a truth or just a tradition I never interrupted? And once you start asking those questions, everything opens. You start to realize that most of your boundaries were optional. Most of your doubts were adopted. Most of your ceilings were fake. And the moment you stop believing them, they cease dominating you. Because a belief is nothing more than a rehearsed idea. You thought it long enough, repeated it often enough, experienced it consistently enough that it became a lens. And now you don't simply have the thought, you view the world through it, but you can switch that lens. You can update the operating system. You can start telling yourself something fresh, not blindly, but with intention, with choice, with discipline, with evidence. You start by identifying the limiting belief, and then you challenge it, you test it, you create a case against it. You acquire proof of moments when it wasn't true. You cease feeding it with repetition. Instead, you begin to cultivate a new belief. This is where most people falter. They uncover the limiting belief but fail to replace it. If you don't replace it, the old belief will grow back. It makes its way into your thoughts during moments of stress, doubt, or tiredness. So, you don't just erase the old notion, you rewire your mind and develop a new one. You do this the same way you establish the old belief, with repetition, emotion, and reinforcement. You speak it and seek proof to support it. Over time, it becomes your new perspective, your new baseline. With that new belief, your actions alter. You stop hesitating, stop playing small, and stop second guessing your instincts because your mind isn't battling you anymore. It's supporting the new identity. That's how you rise. You don't wait for the world to alter how it perceives you. You change how you view yourself. This internal shift opens the next level since now the lid is off. You're no longer negotiating for permission, you're advancing with clarity. But remember, this shift has to be earned. You earn it by showing up every day and acting as the person you're becoming, not the person you've been, even when it seems strange, especially when it feels unpleasant. Every time you behave in alignment with the new belief, the old one loses power. Yes, it will feel uncomfortable, and there will be resistance. Your mind will want to return to what's known because familiarity feels safe. But familiar and rewarding are not the same. If you want to grow, you must risk leaving what's known. So, you take risks, step forward, speak differently, show up differently, and act differently. Not because it's easy, but because it's connected with your new belief. You've chosen to believe something new, and that belief is unlocking doors that the old one never could. The final phase in unlocking your hidden potential is to develop your identity via action. You don't become who you want to be by thinking about it, you become it by behaving like it, consistently, persistently, and intentionally, until those acts become normal and the normal becomes you. This is the bridge most people never cross. They find the idea, become enthused, make a vision board, but never change their behavior. They wait for their identity to transform before taking action. But it doesn't work that way. You don't act because you believe, you start believing because you act. You don't wake up confident and then take action. You move, and through that movement, you earn confidence. You don't wait to feel ready. You move, and in doing so, you become ready. Every action you take casts a vote for the person you are becoming. Every time you show up, follow through, or choose discipline over comfort, that's a vote for your new identity. The more votes you cast, the more you begin to believe, this is who I am now. It's not about faking it, it's about demonstrating it to yourself. You don't need outward validation, you need internal evidence. The simplest approach to gather that evidence is to act as if you are already the person you want to become. Ask yourself, if I were already the person I aspire to be, how would I behave today? What time would I get up? How would I carry myself? What decisions would I make? What would I quit tolerating? Then do that, not once, not again, but until it becomes second nature. Identity isn't discovered, it's built. It's developed via persistent behavior, through choosing the higher route, and through daily action. The longer the game, the harsher the decisions, because that's precisely what your future self would do. And yes, it feels awkward at first. Your present habits will resist change. Your environment might not support it, and your friends might not even recognize the new you. But that's the price of transformation. You can't update without letting go of what no longer serves you. People frequently think change is hard, but what's tougher is staying locked in an outmoded identity that no longer suits you. What's harder is waking up every day believing that your fantasies don't matter. What's harder is living out of alignment year after year. So instead of waiting for motivation, you behave as if. You act like the confident person, you act like the focused one. You act like the disciplined one. You act like the leader, the writer, the athlete, the artist, the builder, whatever your future self demands. You start moving like them today, and you don't need to be perfect. Consistency is crucial. You only need to do it enough such that the new behavior gets familiar, so it eventually becomes your default. Soon, it will feel stranger not to do it than to do it. That's how transformation happens, not as a dramatic change, but via progressive shifts, through behavior, habit, and repetition. And every day you follow through, even if it's messy, you're becoming. You're no longer waiting for motivation. You're no longer hoping someone else would remind you of your ambitions. You've taken full ownership of who you wish to become. And now your calendar reflects that. Your talks reflect that. Your surroundings reflects that. This kind of alignment is rare, but it's real, and it's available to everyone prepared to stop saying someday and start asking, what now? Everyone ready to stop admiring potential and start acting on it. You don't have to broadcast your new identity to the world. You don't have to post about it. You just have to live it. Build evidence quietly, regularly, and let your habits speak for themselves. Let your presence carry the message. The fourth stage in uncovering your latent potential is to regard setbacks as training, not punishment, but preparation, because nothing exposes your potential faster than pressure. And nothing refines it quicker than hardship. Everyone wants progress, but few want discomfort. Everyone wants a breakthrough, but few want to face resistance. But here's the truth. Your potential doesn't emerge in ease. It's drawn out when you're asked to reach beyond the familiar. Comfort keeps you grounded in who you've always been, while challenge pushes you into who you could become. It stretches you, rattles you, and tests the structures and beliefs you've relied on. Every time you choose to lean into difficulties instead of running from it, you evolve. If you want to know what you're truly made of, step into challenge. Do the thing that scares you. Commit to something bigger than your existing ability. Say yes to pressure that compels you to grow, not because you're ready, but because you're eager. The more you avoid adversity, the more you delay your growth. The more you avoid discomfort, the longer your breakthrough will be. What you see as pressure, life calls preparation, and it's not there to break you, it's there to shape you. Every obstacle is an invitation to think clearly, to move with focus, to uncover your edge, and to let go of what no longer serves you. To understand what happens as the old identity begins to erode and a stronger one starts to form. Look at the strongest people you know. The ones that walk with confidence, the ones who carry weight effortlessly, and those who seem to go through storms with clarity. They weren't born that way. They were formed through repetition, through struggle, by doing what most people dread. You don't have to want difficulty, but you do have to quit hiding from it. Stop defining every challenge as a reason to retreat. What if it's not a signal to back down? What if it's exactly where you need to be? Growth seldom feels like growth when you're in the middle of it. It feels like tension, like friction, like irritation. But the longer you stay with it, and the more you allow the suffering to work its magic, the more you ascend. You build capacity. You become more resilient. You think more clearly. You start to recognize that suffering isn't the adversary. It's the instrument that reveals what needs to be mended, what needs to be strengthened, and what you've been avoiding. That understanding is precious. You don't grow in theory. You grow in practice. In the real-life exams no one prepared you for. In the moments that interrupt your comfort. In conditions that feel unjust, unpredictable, or overpowering. Those are the times where you find your edge. But most individuals don't remain long enough to absorb the lesson. They depart too quickly, seeking relief before results. They want the fire to stop before it finishes refining them. So they miss the transformation, they miss the upgrading of their identity. But you're here to stay. You're here to breathe through the struggle, to extract the lesson, to let it make you deeper, not bitter. Stronger, sharper, not tougher. This task isn't here to destroy you. It's here to unlock you. The longer you dwell with this fact, the more unstoppable you become because you no longer fear pressure. You trust it. You no longer panic when things go rough. Instead, you focus. You stop asking for the obstacle to go and start asking, who do I need to become to rise through this? That perspective is rare. It's resilient. It's transformational. Because now, nothing is wasted. Every battle becomes data. Every delay becomes development. Every setback becomes a cue to tighten your habits, modify your posture, and go forward again. You don't have to embrace the pain, but you must respect the process. You must keep showing up when it's not glamorous, when no one's cheering, and when the results are still far away. You stay. You keep breathing. You keep working. And you trust that the struggle is making you stronger than you were before it showed up. The fifth stage to unleashing your hidden potential is matching your environment with your future. No matter how powerful your mindset is, your environment is speaking to you all day long. It's shaping you, nudging you, affecting your habits, and educating your nervous system to either stay the same or extend forward. Most people underestimate this. They believe they can will their way into growth while surrounding themselves with comfort, distractions, and old energy. But you can't cultivate a new identity in the same soil that kept the old one alive. You need a different atmosphere. If your goal is transformation, your environment must reflect that. You have to curate your inputs. Who you're around, what you listen to, what conversations you allow, and what energy you tolerate. Every one of those things is either watering your growth or keeping you back. You cannot evolve into your future while keeping emotionally attached to what makes you mediocre. You can't keep clinging on to every relationship just because of history. You can't continue tolerating a schedule that doesn't respect your vision. You can't keep exposing yourself to low standards and expect to live at a high level. This is where alignment becomes non-negotiable. You stop designing your life around comfort. You cease guarding bad habits. You start asking a better question. Does this support who I'm becoming? And if it doesn't, you adjust, you let go, you upgrade. That upgrade is hard because it entails making judgments that aren't always easy. But if you want to unlock your potential, you need to build an atmosphere that expects it from you, that reflects it back to you, and supports it when your own belief feels uncertain. You establish that environment by being intentional about your time, space, and standards. You don't wait till you feel different. You transform the world around you to remind yourself of who you're becoming. You declutter. You simplify your inputs. You audit your social circle. You pay attention to what makes you sharp and what makes you small. You stop justifying mediocrity and start enhancing everything that touches your daily rhythm. Your environment teaches your nervous system. If it's chaotic, you stay reactive. If it's disciplined, you build peace. If it's distracted, your potential gets splintered. But if it's aligned, clean, focused, and designed, you begin operating at a different level. Alignment isn't accidental. It's formed via limits, decisions, and deciding what you will and will not allow into your physical, mental, and emotional space. You don't become your highest self by happenstance. You become it by decision. So you create an atmosphere that supports that option. You surround yourself with individuals who push you, not just flatter you. You spend time with folks who remind you of your potential, not your past. You invest in connections that hold you accountable to your standards, not ones that keep you comfy in your excuses. You rearrange your schedule and carve out space for what's important. You stop saying yes to things merely because you don't want to disappoint others. You prioritize your future over their momentary judgments. When your environment coincides with your vision, your effort becomes exponential. You're no longer fighting upstream. Instead, you're supported by everything around you. That's when momentum grows. You don't have to think as hard about turning up. You don't have to tell yourself every morning why you're committed. You merely live within a system that supports it, and the steadiness you've been desiring starts to feel normal. This isn't about perfection, it's about awareness. It's about being honest with yourself about where your space is holding you back, and then taking the effort to move it, one decision at a time, because a better life doesn't start with better luck, it starts with better alignment. So, you take inventory, what needs to grow, what needs to be cleaned, preserved, added, deleted. You ask the hard questions, and then you stop waiting for permission to design a space that serves your vision. You just build it. The sixth stage to uncovering the hidden potential within you is managing your internal conversation, because no matter how talented you are, if the voice in your head is ripping you down, the most important discussion you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. You don't ascend to new heights by accident, you rise by reinforcing new beliefs, new patterns. Not just externally, but also within. In the quiet moments, in the midst of commotion, and in the heat of decision-making, that's when your inner voice matters most. Many people have an inner critic that's louder than their inner coach. They don't even notice it's there. It's just been repeating for years. You're not ready. You always mess this up. Why even try? These aren't truths, they're echoes, old programming, recycled out, disguised as fact. And that voice, it's far from harmless. It becomes part of your identity. It forms your posture, sets your risk tolerance, and limits your potential long before life tries you. Because if you're already losing the struggle within, you'll shy away from external challenges. But you can fix this. You can train your inner voice to promote your future, not ruin it. You don't silence the critic, you dominate it. You stop disputing with the negative thoughts and begin rehearsing the happy ones. You talk from your beliefs, not your emotions, from your aim, not your uncertainty, from your identity, not your past. You begin telling yourself what your future needs, not what your past demands. And this isn't about faking it. It's not about being delusional. It's about being methodical and disciplined, built one repetition at a time. You notice the negative voice, halt, reframe, and say, "That's not who I am anymore." Then, you utter something better. "I'm in progress, I'm growing, I'm showing up. I can do this." You replace judgment with instruction. Instead of, "I'm failing," you ask. Instead of, "This always happens," you ask, "What can I change?" You stop attaching your identity to mistakes and start attributing purpose to them. This shift in language compounds. It creates belief not instantaneously but progressively over time. As your belief builds, your actions alter, your posture improves, your risk tolerance grows, and your consistency deepens. Because now you're not working against your own mind, you're working with it. You coach yourself through problems, remain centered in chaos, and choose language that supports commitment, not ease. You speak to yourself as if you value yourself as someone worth showing up for, because you are. Every time you repeat this process, you reinforce an identity. I'm disciplined. I follow through. I do the hard things. I stay calm under pressure. These aren't just words, they're anchors. They hold you steady when everything else is in upheaval. And they don't simply affect your mood, they shape your life. Your inner discourse determines your outer conduct. Your conduct becomes your habits. Your behaviors shape your results. And your outcomes reinforce that belief. It's a cycle. You're either running it consciously or letting it run you by default. But it's occurring, so take control, become intentional, choose your words wisely, because you're constantly listening. You can't convince yourself into mediocrity every day and expect to have an incredible life. You can't talk yourself down and expect to lead with power. You can't carry self-doubt constantly and expect to take courageous action. You have to adjust the story. From now on, you must cultivate the practice of auditing your ideas, adjusting your words, and disputing the narrative. Speak to yourself like someone who matters, like someone whose life is worth building, like someone who has more potential than they've realized and is finally ready to unlock it. The seventh stage to uncovering the hidden potential within you is to move with haste. Not fear, not haste, but urgency, the type that comes from recognizing time is not guaranteed. The type that comes from realizing potential without action is wasted opportunity. There's a version of you that exists just beyond this moment, not someday, not after you feel ready, not when everything falls into place, but right now. But you won't meet that version by waiting. You won't meet it by hoping. You meet it by taking action. Most people lose their moment, not because they lack talent, but because they were too careless with their timing. They figured they'd have another shot. They convinced themselves they had time. They let the calendar lie to them. Meanwhile, someone else was acting with urgency. Urgency isn't stress, it's clarity. It's a deep sense that your life matters, your potential counts, and that the window of opportunity doesn't stay open forever. While you're waiting, the gap is expanding. The more you procrastinate, the harder it becomes to close that gap. You don't get to pick how long your opportunity will last, but you do get to control how soon you respond to it. Every day you pause, you tell your brain that delay is okay, that waiting is secure, that comfort is more valuable than growth. But when you move with urgency, everything transforms. Your excuses start to sound weaker. Your vision grows louder. Now, you're not just thinking about your future, you're building it. You don't wait for incentive. You don't wait for energy. You act first. You train your system to move when it's inconvenient. You cease allowing your feelings govern your speed. You stop equating "I'm not ready" with "it's not time." The truth is, you're not always going to feel ready, but the only way to get ready is to act nonetheless, to step anyway, to start anyway. When you do, and momentum provides evidence, and that evidence builds belief. If you want to believe in yourself, start moving. Stop planning incessantly. Stop waiting for perfection. Perfection is merely procrastination dressed up with a good label. Start with what you have, where you are, right now. What you can't afford is another month of hesitation, another quarter of waiting, another year of looking back and wishing you had done more. You don't need another talk, you need traction, and traction demands movement. This isn't about recklessness, it's about accountability. It's about knowing that your life is your responsibility, your future is your responsibility, and if you want change, no one is coming to drag you into it. You go, you lead, you move, and you do it shamelessly without needing everyone to understand, without waiting for the conditions to be ideal. Because urgency isn't about drama, it's about commitment. Commitment to your vision, your discipline, your next level. And when you live that way, when urgency becomes part of your rhythm, minor things no longer slow you down. You quit letting other people's opinions derail you. You cease letting fear define your speed. You lead, you take action. Potential without urgency is like a shelf full of unopened goods. Life doesn't owe you the luxury of unwrapping them at a leisurely pace, so you make the choice. You pick up the pace, not chaotically, but with intention, not feverishly, but with purpose. The future doesn't wait, and the more you postpone, the more you'll have to reconstruct. But the sooner you go, the more territory you cover, the more insight you gain, and the more of your own potential you unearth. You've just been through 7 stages, not fast suggestions or motivational fluff, but genuine, actionable steps that unlock what's already within you. Because here's the truth, it's already there. You don't need to find yourself, you need to return to yourself. You don't need rescuing, you need reminding. You've been told to wait, to play small, to keep realistic. But the reality is this: your potential isn't scared by your history, it isn't restricted by your present. It's only waiting for your permission to come alive. Now you have the keys. You have the awareness to see what's real. You have the clarity to challenge outdated views. You have the tools to develop identity through action. You have the mindset to perceive adversities as your training ground. You have the power to shape your environment. You have the language to speak life into your future. And you have the urgency to act immediately. So, what's next? It's not more theory. It's not waiting for another breakthrough. It's about doing the effort, taking the step, making the transition, creating the habit, and repeating the cycle, showing up regularly, day in and day out, because potential without execution is just regret waiting to come. If you've felt it before, if you've lived with the quiet strain of knowing you're meant for more, but not moving on it, you don't have to stay there. You get to write a new story. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming who you've always been, beneath the fear, the diversions, and the self-doubt. It's about discarding what's artificial and moving into what's real. You don't need to impress anyone. You don't need to have it all figured out. You only need to start constructing, start believing. Not loudly, but consistently. Not once, but every day. And when it gets hard, because it will, you come back to this. You recall why you started. You remember who you're becoming. You tell yourself that discomfort is not the enemy, it's the road. You don't quit. You breathe, you step forward, you lead. Because the world doesn't gain from you playing small. It doesn't rise from your hesitancy. It doesn't grow from your quiet. It shifts when you come up, without apology. So, here's your permission slip. Or maybe it's your reminder. That you've always been more than you've permitted. That it's not too late. That now is still the best time. If you commit to the process, the results will follow. You have the map, the fire, and the capacity. The only thing left is the decision to move, to stride forward,